कि हमें फास्ट चार्जिंग चाहिए, हमें सुपर फास्ट चार्जिंग चाहिए, नहीं हमें एलईवी चाहिए जो फास्ट भी होगी, लेकिन किसको चाहिए? हम कौन है ये?
That is where the scenario comes in, that slow charging is better slower, fast charging is better faster.
But I don't know how many OEMs are ready to share that. Without that, none of this will work. No matter how many platforms you create, until authentication is made common, nothing is going to work.
You talked about apps.
I'm happy sitting here listening to
You know where we are going with this one. Okay, OCPP. The first was MTQ, which was
MQTT.
MQTT,
Yes.
घर का बनाया हुआ.
हाँ.
OCPP, OCPI, and now comes Beacon Protocol, and the entire construct around interoperability. UEI. यार ये समझाओ ये हो क्या रहा है पहले तो, and where is it going to go? Like we talked about protocol, let's now take this another angle as well, because all of us are interested parties in this, and take your shot at this. And I know Chandresh again. But yeah, absolutely. I mean this is the entire idea. So over to you. What is this all of these things happening around?
Before that, I love this chat. So I also have a point of view on that. I have a special.
Till the time you don't get them so excited that you both start. I also want to listen.
See, I have a special inability for the complicated. So now, both of them, and of course Magenta as well, fleets. My business is targeting the person mobility customer, which means somebody who's using it for going to office or going to a trade, and then once in a while going to have dinner or a coffee or a beer, for example. That's my use case. The reason I said I'll speak on this and then we'll come to the UEI is I've this debate कि हमें फास्ट चार्जिंग चाहिए, हमें सुपर फास्ट चार्जिंग चाहिए, नहीं हमें एलईवी चाहिए जो फास्ट भी होगी, लेकिन किसको चाहिए? हम कौन है ये? Who is this hum? Okay. In case of the personal mobility customer, its data is the average daily run is 35 kilometers, which is simply home to office, office to home. Once in a while you go to have a beer or to do grocery shopping or to, let's say, have dinner. Simple. Okay. India is largely two-wheelers, right? 20 million two-wheelers, 3 odd million cars. Again, scooter takes about 4.5 hours to charge. नहीं चाहिए उसको fast charging. And the charging behavior is that charging is happening at home. A full tank, I think now is giving close to 100 kilometers these days. Mota, right? Earlier used to be 60, right? 3 years ago. वो बढ़ते 100 किलोमीटर तक आ गया. I have observed people charge once in 3 days. They don't charge every day. I was under the assumption that it will be very similar to the mobile phone charging behavior. It is, which is charge overnight, use the entire, correct? Then plug it in. Initially, yes, people were charging every day. I now see personal mobility, two-wheelers, customers, they charge only once in 3 days, 2 to 3 days. 100 kilometer ka range milta hai. And then, so the second thing which I understand is something which my dad told me बचपन में, is एक स्कीम चलता है इंडिया में which is called SST, सस्ता सुंदर टिकाऊ. वो पर्सनल मोबिलिटी वाले को नहीं चाहिए ब्रो फास्ट चार्जिंग जबरदस्ती का घर के ऊपर. उसका बैटरी भी खराब होएगा. आई वाज होपिंग दैट समबडी सेज की बैटरी विल गेट डैमेज्ड. करेक्ट, थैंक गॉड. सो नहीं चाहिए उसको. वो सो रहा है रात में फॉर 8-9 आवर्स, पीछे स्कूटर चार्ज हो रहा है. एंड द स्कूटर इज गेटिंग चार्ज वेयर ही और शी वाज ऑलरेडी पार्किंग द स्कूटर अर्लियर. वो जिधर पार्किंग कर रहा था उधर ही वो सॉकेट लगा हुआ है. सो दिस सेम पार्किंग, just that now he's or she is using the adapter to plug it in. This is for Personal mobility, two-wheelers. Now, outside of home, let's say in an SOS use case, and SOS does not happen too much. How many times do we really forget to charge our phones overnight at home? Correct. And there's still some use left. Once in a while, rare case में outside of home location में charging का जरूरत पड़ता है. Once in a while. Right? Very rare use case. This is largely for two-wheelers. Same thing with four-wheelers. Now, within four-wheelers, there is a within city use. So, intercity बोलते, intracity बोलते. Within is intra. Okay. So, I keep getting confused. Sorry. Within city, if the car is being used to drive within the city, overnight charging gives 200 kilometers. चलना है 35 किलोमीटर ही. Again, home to office, office to home. Correct. And again, once in a while here and there. Full charge मिल गया 200 किलोमीटर, एक हफ्ता चलाओ. The other will be inter. Between cities, let's say, I don't know, Delhi, Chandigarh or Hyderabad, Bangalore, Bombay, Pune. चाहिए वहाँ पे फास्ट चार्जिंग, क्योंकि वो रात में चार्ज करके निकला है, मस्त तैयार वायर हो गए, वो हाईवे के ऊपर उसको लगेगा. Perfect use case. In personal mobility, how many people actually travel between, let's say, Hyderabad, Bangalore? The number is smaller. So within city use case is lower. Personal mobility. Now cut to commercial mobility. हमें fast charging किसको चाहिए commercial mobility? There are, so earlier in one of my avatars I was heading the auto business of Ola long ago. There are essentially two categories of, and I'm not referring to fleet operators. Fleet operators are absolute yes, slam dunk, correct. For the individual driver, DCOs, like somebody who's not associated with any fleets, who's independently, let's say, ferrying passengers, auto, right, or ferrying goods, for example. There are two categories which we observed. Category one is the topper category, मेहनती, right, ज़्यादा काम करेगा, ज़्यादा पैसा कमाएगा करके. Category two, average काम करेगा, average पैसा कमाएगा, खुश है, I'm happy. Right? For the category 2, the average run is typically about 80-90 kilometers. This is older data. If this number has improved, you will know better. But at that point of time, this is about 4-5 years ago, 6 years ago, the average run was 90 kilometers. It's important to respect the fact that driving 90 kilometers every day, delivering human beings or delivering food or packages if you're in Bombay, if you're in Bangalore, if you're in Delhi, it's a fact, it's a very stressful job. Okay? So some set of people would like to run more. Okay? For those people who would like to run more, absolutely different kinds of fast charging make sense. Right? Fast, super fast, etc., etc., etc. For people who do not want to run a lot, then वो overnight charging works. I'm surprised you've not asked the swapping question yet. You'll
Stayed away from swapping for the sheer fact that then you are opening another Pandora's box of a Pandora's box of a Pandora. वो जो Inception वाला हो जाएगा, level 3, level 4 में चले जाएंगे. And I'm very sure each one of us will have.
You'd ask Akshay swapping. Akshay, what do you think about swapping? You're like,
इसके लिए तो नहीं पूछा. because what happens is those are standard, but these are questions. Na? For example, the spot that I'm putting is on this UEI backend.
Yeah.
These are conversations which have not yet happened, and that's where now, having understood your point of view on slow and fast, what is this entire thing about apps, singular apps, interoperability, UEI? What's happening over there? Very open.
very simple. Now, let me just sort of deconstruct what is. Beacon is one of the protocols which you can use. You can use OCPP as well. It's like the choice of coding language. Right? You can use Python or you can use, I don't know, React, or you can use Flutter, for example. That's not the whole argument here. The argument is that all charging stations should be interoperable. What does that mean? What does interoperability mean? For me, again, trying to simplify it as much as possible. If there is a customer who runs a car and is in need of, let's say, power petrol, correct? Maybe runs a supercar, for example, and is in need of power petrol. If there is an app which is able to tell her that if you go there, Shell, for example, I think they have that category of fuel, right? उधर मिल जाएगा, ये भाव पे मिलेगा, right? And if the same individual, for example, has another car at home, let's say a Maruti, which requires a regular kind of a petrol, the app should be able to say कि यहाँ मिलेगा, correct? And if the same individual has, let's say, a diesel Innova, the app should be able to say कि यहाँ मिलेगा, ये price पे मिलेगा. That for me is the need of the end customer. Simply put, right? Somebody should be able to say, this is where you will get what you need at this price point, and these are the service levels. It's 5-star rated, 3-star rated, etc., etc., etc. That for me is a simple definition of what the end customer needs. Right? I don't understand UVI as a construct. I don't. Now, is there that someone who's providing that today? There are a couple of that someones. One of them is us. I think one of them is static as well. Correct? And in commercial, InstaCharge is available.
The Pulse as well.
Correct? Right? So, है ये solution. They work. The experience is, I keep giving this parallel like Zomato. Multiple restaurant, what do you need? That you need a single place where you are able to see different dining options available. Let's say you're planning a dinner. You should be able to then reserve a table. Once you reach there, correct? The restaurant should allow you inside with the confirmation that you have done. Once you are allowed inside, the restaurant menu should actually have what was shown on the app. The experience should be actually what was stated on the app, 4.3 rated. And the payment, the restaurant should be okay accepting the payment using the.
So if that is the case, again, putting you on the spot in this one, is let's say there were so many CPUs, let's say 40 CPUs the. So because each one of them had their apps, so there are 40 apps.
Yeah.
So now has this consolidated to 5 or 6 Scouter Finder apps? Right? Is it how this entire, where I'm saying is, in for example in Europe and North America, there's 7 layers of elements bad gaya in charging. One is an asset operator to asset manager to
Correct.
So here in India, where exactly are we? I mean, is that what it is? And I think actually you also want to take a at it. Is
good question.
What are the layers that are forming in here?
Now, what is needed for an app like this to form is that various, let's say, charge point operators, and when I say charge point operators, I mean both individual, somebody who has one charger, that number is small now, but I think that number will go up, 1 or 2 chargers. Then a medium size charge point operator, somebody who has 10, 15, 20, 50 chargers, and then a large size CPU, somebody like a Charge Plus Zone in the north or Xeon in the south. All of these entities should be happy, okay and happy to onboard quote unquote themselves, like the restaurants are onboarding themselves. This is the first entry point, correct? वो onboard करेगा ही नहीं तो फिर ये aggregation app बनेगा कैसे? Okay, now what was my bet? Where am I seeing this today? Is my bet was very simple. The category 1 and the category 2 did not and will not exist at the initial part of the growth of this charging infrastructure business or the facilities. And that's how it is. The charging facilities were being set up by companies. startups, for example, you know. And from first principles, every startup will be, of course, extremely insecure and with all the right reasons that मैं अपना चार्जर किसी और के ऐप पे क्यों करूं? Why? Because the narrative is my charging network and they're my customer and therefore LTV and valuations and paisa banao LinkedIn पे post डालो. Correct? First principles. Having said that, my bet was that over time, what might happen, luckily that has happened, still seeing that in progress, that reality will hit, which is कि bro utilization नहीं आ रहा है, नहीं आ रहा है कस्टमर, उसका गलती नहीं है, कस्टमर नहीं आ रहा है, वो है ही नहीं बाजार में कस्टमर, too few people exist. Again, I'm not talking about the fleet part of the customers, because that's a very clear B2B contract slam dunk use case, which is why the fleet, is काफी sorted है ना. But if you're setting up chargers, which is what happened initially, the fleet use case got discovered over time, so to say. Coming back, नहीं reality आई, customer तो नहीं आ रहा, like बढ़िया लगाया, hub बनाया, सब किया, right? नहीं आ रहा customer. Now, I think only those companies can cut, again, who are not contracting with fleets, obviously that's a clear slam dunk. But if you're trying to address the personal mobility use case by saying कि मेरा ऐप रहेगा, मेरे चार्जिंग नेटवर्क से चलेगा, only those companies will survive, or those businesses will survive, business rather, I'm not saying about the company, business, who is able to have long-term patient capital. Correct? And therefore, but there are only 2-3 companies in India who have the long-term patient capital. कि मैं लगाया electric petrol pump दबा के, now I'll wait, आएगा customer उस time पर बनेगा पैसा. Right? The small, medium startups who are able to attract that kind of patient capital to wait it out will survive, potentially make money. Correct. That was my hypothesis. And then the reality hitting would lead to some of these CPOs to say, no more insecurity about my own app. I have set up a electric petrol pump which has 4 charging stations or 10 charging stations. मेरे को ROI चाहिए bro. Those people will start not playing the VC game, etc., etc. That's what I have observed, Maxson. So today, for example, let's say we've put up about some 7,000-8,000 third-party fast chargers on the app. 20% of them are transactable. They use our CMS. Came organically. We didn't do any bidding. They said, आपके ऐप पे aggregate कर लेते हैं, धंधा दोगे क्या मेरे को करके?
So this is where Akshay, you wanted to say something on this entire protocol thing, because you come from the doctor's view, if I were to say, very studied.
You get that commented, but
so over to you.
yes, so fundamentally, if you look at it as he was saying, right, which is that there is a very different scenario of personal use case and the B2B use case. Public charging infra doesn't scale unless you are taking a view कि मेरे को आज पैसा चाहिए ही नहीं. I will deploy this and I'm ready to wait for 10 years to start milking it out. So those category of players in the market aside, personal use case will never make money for public charging infra. Neither it will bring utilization, nor it will. It's a social. That is exact definition of social service in charging. Personal for public fast charging. That is where the social service lies, at least right now. Right now, and that's why my point of the previous conversation also comes in, that is where the scenario comes in, that slow charging is better slower, fast charging is better faster. Right? So that is the way I look at it. Because इसको स्लो चाहिए तो उसको और स्लो कर दो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. वो 6 घंटे की जगह 10 घंटे लगेंगे तो रात में 10 घंटे सो रहा है वो, मतलब ऐसे ही. Right? So that doesn't matter. And then जिसको फास्ट चाहिए उसको जितनी जल्दी हो जाए उतना अच्छा है. So that's the way the market works. Now, when you come to public charging, there are two scenarios: intra-city public charging and intercity public charging. Intra-city mein at least there is now a use case where the B2B customers are going and saying ki, okay, we need public fast charging. And when I say public charging, I'm meaning public DC charging. So when you talk about public DC charging, at least in the intra-city game, there are B2B customers which are going and charging their vehicles. So that volume is at least coming in. When you talk about the intercity public DC charging, there is the most dearth of customers in that segment because personal तो वैसे ही कम है और वहाँ पे B2B use case has not developed only. There is no heavy trucks which are going around. Some buses have come in, but buses have dedicated spots because the kind of power that is required will not work on a charge zone charger. कि CCS लगाया है तो मेरा वहाँ पे हो जाएगा. So that is where the market lies. Now, because we had to kickstart the ecosystem, the government said that we will come up with various schemes and we will offer subsidies to people who are in the business of setting up chargers. So that thoda sa kuch attractiveness aaye, and I'm sure most of us have
VGF viability gap funding.
Most of us have been beneficiaries of that charging infra subsidies, saying कि बस government ने पैसा दे दिया, अब आप उसको लगा लो, so you can wait it out a little bit more to get the customer going. Right now, so that is where we were sitting. Now government came in and said that boss मैंने पैसा दिया, तुमने मेरे पैसे पे चार्जर लगाया, अभी तुम नखरा कर रहे हो कि मैं इसके ऐप पे नहीं चलाऊंगा, मैं उसके ऐप पे नहीं चलाऊंगा. Right? ऐसे तो like I am creating parallel charging infras which don't work with each other. Right? My intention was to create a single charging infra and basically motivate multiple people to put up an infra which is a common infra. And now between your egos of business, as he was explaining, you are saying that I will not work on this app, I will work on this app and all of those things. So what government is saying is similar to the banking solution, it doesn't matter which bank account you have the account with, which bank you have the account with, right? UPI can take money from any account to any account. And that is where the whole concept of this UI, which is now beacon and all of the other things come in, which is the payment layer of charging, not the charging layer of charging. Right? So all these interfaces are now on that side. So the charging layer is CCS2, GBT, LEV6 and all of that. That is the vehicle and charger ke beech ka. Now all this UEI and then beacon and all of that you're talking about is between the charger and the cloud and the payment. Right? So this is the difference primarily. And now what government is saying is ki boss, doesn't matter, it is a charge on charger, it's a EVRE, it's a electric pay, it is XYZ static, Potom, whosoever it is. Right? If there is अभी तो हम वो बोलेंगे कि जिसने हम सब्सिडी लिया उसको UI पे आना जरूरी है. Right? And then we will say कि if you are putting up a charger and if you are getting an electric connection for a charger, UI पे जरूरी है. That's how the mandates work. Right? So that is where it is going towards. And then what they are saying is that if everybody is on a common payment and cloud connection and all of that protocol, so then interoperability comes from that perspective, that you have an app of, let's say EVRE, you can still use a charger of electric pay and pay for it and do all of those things, and vice versa. There can be fees. Government can also go into saying that interoperability hogi but free hogi, like they did in UPI. So that's a risk that the players in the ecosystem have to take on, right? But essentially it is about all of that. So if I could put it in a nutshell.
Correct. And this is where Chandresh, you are going to answer it, then I'll hold him to that mic because I have a very interesting twist on this. So go ahead, first respond to what you want.
My understanding of UI. See, today the biggest problem, when you have multiple apps, is okay, discovery to ho jayega. There are a lot of discovery platforms. Maps hai, ye hai. Problem is authentication. That is the biggest problem. अगर UI चार्जर और पेमेंट लेयर का प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहे हैं तो अभी तक वो ऑथेंटिकेशन वाला, you go to any charger but you will get authenticated and then it will happen, is not happening. The way UEI would authenticate, my understanding is that they would use the EID number, vehicle ka authentication code. But I don't know how many OEMs are ready to share that. Without that, none of this will work. No matter how many platforms you create, until authentication is made common, nothing is going to work. That is the most important part.
That was exactly my twist. And I was coming to, since you picked it up, let me make it a bit difficult for you. Okay. Chandresh, I think you should add, and then I will.
And I like how you explained it on that perspective. I'll just give a quick short, parallel via story. All of us, I think most of us have used an Ola cab or an Uber cab at some point of time. Now, and I think some of us would have definitely experienced the driver saying that, sir, can you make the payment offline to me? Offline would mean, can you just GPay me? Correct. Now, how many of us were comfortable actually saying that, okay, I'll not go via a particular app of Ola, I'll just GPay it to you. Correct? It's not about enabling using, of course, the underlying layer is UPI. उसमें कोई doubt है नहीं. The point is that there needs to be somebody or something who is taking ownership of the customer experience, which means if something goes bad, the two individuals who are there, the customer and the cab owner, or the customer and the restaurant owner, are not coming to blows. Correct? And that's where an Ola or a Zomato says, I am taking responsibility of the full transaction, of making sure the restaurant booking is happening and you're not fighting with the bouncer there, making sure that they are letting you in, making sure that the payment is happening. Any issue there, I am there. You talk to me, the restaurant talks to me, or you talk to me and the cab driver talks to me. Because there are billions of, whatever, let's say millions of cabs and millions of people, millions of restaurants. That needs to be solved for. If I lastly quote the example of UPI, UPI is the underlying layer. If we have to go to a grocery store and we want to make a payment, किसका payment app use करते हैं आज की तारीख पर? Phone Pay, Paytm, Google Pay. Because they are taking care, these startups, and obviously Google Pay is a listed company, they're taking care of the experience. That's the whole argument here.
That's exactly why those multiple 7 layers, at least my last count was 7 layers between the customer and the asset owner on the charging side. 7 layers will build up. Okay, that was my thesis, and that's all. And Chandresh, now coming to you, because you know what, Akshay, I'm taking from your question. You said, right, government ने पैसा डाला, subsidy दिया, बोला कि ये लगा वो.
कुछ नहीं दिया.
But let me, even without giving, suddenly Chandresh puts up this entire public charging infrastructure and a notification comes last week saying, भाई आप इतना ही पैसा कमा सकते हो. This is your top line on charging. Where, I mean, you and I, we have battled enough. We've seen that. We've pushed back. We went to the Ministry of Power, and yet again, last week, I guess, or 2 weeks ago, it has come. So, doesn't it shake you up really to do what you're doing? And so, and what's it? I mean, the first question, I assume the answer is yes, but then what? Don't you think that this is a recurring problem and hence always a risk that you're carrying?
It is a big problem because there is no way somebody can tell you कि आप इतना ही कमा सकते हैं. I'll tell you a reason why. Because the variables when you set up charging infrastructures are so many. They change from different state, different regions, different places. They keep changing, and the cost cannot be contained to a certain point for the same infrastructure also. So somebody telling you that you can only make this much money without understanding what is going behind it is I don't know what to say. It's an abomination, I would say. Nobody can do that. They shouldn't be doing that rather. So that is a big problem, right? Now, another thing, subsidy मिला नहीं मिला है सर, किसी को भी नहीं मिला है. खाली जिनको मिला है उनके चार्जर काम नहीं करते हैं. That is a fact. I am sitting here. जिनको मिला है उनके चार्जर काम नहीं करते, उनके तार नहीं है, उनके हार्डवेयर खराब है, कनेक्टिविटी पुअर है, नहीं काम करता. It doesn't work. So people like us who have set up infra with charger uptime of greater than 98%, at least today, not in the past. Okay. So if that is the kind of uptime we have to give, then that is a service we are providing. That is the effort we have put, both in terms of manpower and technology. And then you tell us that you can only charge so much money. That is not done.
Consumer will be happy, but then at the end of it, if there is no one to provide that service, everyone will be out of business.
Right. दो चीज़ है यहाँ पे फिर से. There are two things. One is when you're doing for fleets, anyways you're being pushed. They are just, the competition is increased so much. We could charge a certain number 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but we can't do that anymore. It is not happening. We were lucky, we made some money at some of our hubs, so it's only OPEX that is left for us. But people who have come in the market now, and they have to just under this burden of larger players and fleets pushing and doing this and not making money, it's not making sense. It's not making sense at all. Yeah.
Right. So this is where I am guided by the fact that I wish this conversation should go on and on. And this is my mandate to the producer of the show, Smita, is we need longer times to have this conversation, because each of us come with such depth of expertise. You have lived through it, right? And this is going to be one takeaway. But just trying to conclude this, because I wish we could do this with some beverages with us. And we could go on and on. But let me just go around the table, and at this time I'll ask Dr. Akshay first. Charging business, we are where we are. We've lived through this. We still struggled, but we are here, right? We've got beaten. We are here. From here, for the next 2 years, right? From here, your punt on what's really going to happen in the next 2 years. Something which is out of the blue, which not many people would think of. Why I'm asking this question is, many people will follow the obvious. You are the experts, you are the pundits here, who will tell this is where it is going. So what are your 2 things that you believe is going to happen?
See, the penetration of vehicles is increasing, and that's what is. So what happening is fatigue is setting in terms of how do one transition charging infra from a social service to a business category, and now is the time when it will actually happen. So my belief is that rather than getting fatigued now is the time to kind of stay put and kind of milk what is coming up, because this is going to transition. And I just wanted to complete on the point that he was raising about fixing the rate and all of those things. I think those challenges keep on coming. Representation helps in those cases. That will go back, because fundamentally we have to understand that fuel, and that's what our entire EV industry gets compared with, petrol or diesel or whatever, is a national affair. Electricity is a state affair, which the babus don't really pay heed to. They think that सब कुछ fuel की तरह चलाएंगे. हमने fuel का price हम fix करते हैं, तो electricity for charging का price we will also fix. And that is what we need to keep on going back to them and making them understand. So I think that's where I'll close. Like, these are the 2 things.
2 predictions for the EV charging industry.
From what I see, how the industry is going, one thing I clearly see is consolidation. That is going to happen over the next 2 years. Big time, because smaller companies not able to raise money, not able to bring vehicles to charge on their network. Assets are going to get consolidated. That is what is going to happen. So the larger ones maybe, or few smaller ones that are able to get enough on their network might stay, but most of it is going to get consolidated. That is one thing. Second thing that I believe is all this, what we are talking about, multiple apps and those things. I think there will be appless charging. There are few constraints there, but I think that will solve the biggest problem.
Very well said, Chandresh. 2 good predictions. Over to you, Avinash. 2 predictions from your, which we should put money on.
2 predictions where we should put money on. So I think what has happened until now, for sure, is innovation around product and service. Innovation around product would be I have these kind of batteries, for example, or I have these kind of chargers, correct? I have chargers which have LED boards where you can run ads. Yes. And etc. 2 guns, 4 guns, 6 guns, etc. And then innovations around service has happened, that my charging facility has the following additional nuances around the servicing. My swapping facility or my swapping service he's extremely tech and cool and has an app and very fancy looking swapping stations, and then etc etc etc. I think the next wave will be business model innovation, where both charging and swapping players will work extremely hard to figure out how to make money. So business model innovation is going to happen. Product and service innovation, I think we've seen the wave.
Avinash, Dr. Akshay, Chandresh, you know, this there's a saying, चार जन मिलके हंसते हैं ना साथ में, दिल से हंस रहे हैं, ठीक है? This was the entire idea about this, you know, conversations on mobility, and I hope and pray that that is exactly what we were seeking to achieve, and that's what you all experienced. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation. I truly mean this, that there's so much more we could sit and talk. And each one of you has contributed to the growth of EV and EV charging in India. And I think to many people who are going to listen to this, it has not been acknowledged as much, right? I think as individuals, you have done a great journey. As companies, you all have done amazing work. And I wish you all the success in your respective areas. And to the couple of points that you have given, yes, obviously so. But to people who are looking at you as mentors, as pioneers to guide, I would encourage them to reach out to you to see how you can work this out. And till we meet again on the next set of conversations on mobility, hopefully with some beverages with us, thank you so much. This was awesome. I'm just checking if there are any questions around the house. If yes, I think, yeah, over to you. So,
hi, good evening. I'm Tushar. So my question starts where Mr. Chandresh, you conclude, or probably Avinash also. You mentioned two things: consolidations and probably new innovations, right? So far we have seen two worlds. One, the Chinas and Vietnams of the world, where the public infra and I would say charging is something not for the monetization, for the adoption. And you have the Tesla of the world, where the fancy gimmicky things and probably controllable as a nature, where Tesla has been popular because their chargers and network are controlled by themselves. I would say control in terms of the adoption by themselves. Yeah. In India, we are seeing a lot of things. I think a lot of trial and error. Tata is going on a Tesla way. That's my thought of in theory, because they are leveraging the Tata powers and chargers, and they are giving a lot of freebies to the consumers, which has worked very well for them so far. And we have so many other players. Do you see a white labeling or a concept with the OEMs, probably MGs and the Marutis and Hyundai of the world? Because Hyundai is also now going very aggressively on the public infra and charging, and to promote their vehicles. And basically that could be the way. Or do you see that there are headroom for a lot of players? Because I am seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs and startups are coming on a charging side, and they are still very excited to come, and I don't know what to say.
I don't know what the excitement is about.
Yeah.
50, 30.
So that's my view for.
No, my point was only for charging. I don't know what the excitement is about, being in this industry for 6 years. But one thing I would like to add, though you say that Tata is trying to do power and all those things, but what they are lacking right now is the seamlessness between all this system that Tesla is able to do, right? You go to a Tesla charger with a Tesla car, it recognizes. And that's not happening today. And then the whole system is very seamless. I think that is what needs to happen. Coming back to headroom for more players, right? See, small people who are excited about this, there'll be startups coming into this space. But what I've seen over the last couple of years, though there are some startups coming, but what used to happen in 2021, 2022, post-COVID, I'm saying. So there were a lot of startups that actually came into charging market, smaller ones. And then people like us who were we had started a little before we started doing certain things. Now, what I'm seeing in this market is everybody is trying to move to a certain kind of business, that is business that has predictability. That is something we did right in very early days, but everybody is wanting to move there, and that is causing a lot of problem. So that what is happening, there is competitiveness that is coming, and there is a push from the fleet side where they are making us fight between ourselves. That is a fact. I think Maxson will agree to that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're also a fleet operator, so yes, and that is happening. That is clearly happening. Margins are shrinking. So I don't know what the business is now. So the only way that you can survive in this market against the larger ones, and also the burden or the push from the fleet, pressure from the fleet, is only two ways. So you don't have the financial muscle to fight these guys, the big ones. So the only way to do it is fighting with that price is by reducing your input cost, by innovation on that side, on the energy side, on the infra side. Massive innovations are needed. There's so much gap. I'll tell you, when I build hub infrastructure today, there is so much gap. On how much energy can be saved, how assets can be utilized well. So only that is the only way if you have to fight the big guys and still remain have good margins. That is the only way to do it. We don't have the financial muscle to actually fight these guys. So the only way is the tech and the optimization on the operation side, on the how we use the manpower. That is the only way of doing it. That is my understanding. Headroom for more players is maybe on certain parts of charging, not the charging infra as a whole. That is what I believe. But I don't think so. Charging infra as a whole is that an exciting opportunity. That is my understanding. Until you crack it in such a way that you can build a profitable business model and show its profitability over time.
That's Thank you for the panel for such an insightful session. So I'll just set a context before I ask my questions. So one main USP of the EVs is their low total cost of ownership, and the main enabler for this USP is the lowest cost of electricity that we have in India. And with the rise of EV demand, is our nation's grid equipped to tackle this demand? Because what we have seen in the Western states, I mean, especially in the US, is some grid companies have stopped adding residential solar to the grid and they've started planning fossil fuel generation projects. So will we go in that road, or do we have enough capability and enough generation power to cope up with this demand? So I have two more parts to the question. So will V2X technology help us solve this question and will it ever take off in India? Also, will time of day tariff, will this actually make the cost of charging even more? Because without BESS, the majority of the charging demand comes at night and your renewables don't work at night.
See, the way I look at it is that time of day tariff is something which is inevitable and utmost important for reliability of the grid that we have, or anybody else have in the world. The challenge, though, on the flip side is that we are a country which is too democratic. And because we are too democratic, therefore everything gets decided by where the vote goes. And while the time of day tariff is very important to put the urban population online, that doesn't contribute to the vote bank. And what contributes to the vote bank cannot live with time of day tariff, and hence they cannot pay anything extra to do with it. So that is where we are stuck, and that's the reason we are the only large economy in the world which does not have time of day tariff. When it will come up, very hard to judge. We are seeing early shoots of it happening. For example, in some states like Maharashtra have come it up, Telangana has come up, but that's also very limited, very small delta between base price and higher price, and that too only limited to commercial outfits, not for general mass population. But as I said, it is inevitable. Sooner or later, it has to be incorporated into your grid structure. Otherwise, there is no way we can transition to completely renewable grid in that sense. With that coming in, it is actually, the challenge is not that whether we will be able to serve the entire demand of EVs, but actually beneficial coming in, because then there will be a bit of sensibility in terms of when we actually charge our EVs. Right? They might be plugged in through the entire idle state of theirs, which is also a bit challenging on the other side in the Indian ecosystem. But even if they are plugged in, then there are smart energy managers, which are already very common in Europe and in, I think, US setting also, but at least I've seen it in Europe, where it depends upon what the tariff is, and accordingly different appliances or different loads get priority as to what gets power when. Right? So those things will happen, and then tying it back to the same philosophy, in that scenario,
slower charging will become even slower and the faster charging will become even faster.
So, your first question was, are grids equipped? Simple data, if all lights, fans, ACs, fridges in India, everything is switched off at the same time, the amount of power, whatever is needed, when everything is switched off, our capacity as a country is 2x of that. So we have enough power. 1, 2. The real problem is not in is enough generation available. We have 2 times. The real problem is in distribution. Okay. Simply explained, we are, let's say, take a city like Bangalore, and I think every city will relate to this except for Bombay, because they're very well planned. In a city like Bangalore, no one ever imagined that Whitefield as an area will suddenly pop up. Used to be a jungle. Indiranagar used to be a jungle at one point of time. Correct? Now, therefore, the Discom was, rightly so, let's use that word, never prepared to provide energy to a white field, and it suddenly came up. IT companies came up and residentials came up, and therefore providing this capacity which is available to something like this is a question of, and you're absolutely right, it's a question of planning. There's only one city, to my knowledge, and maybe 1 or 2 more, Maxson. There's only one city in India, to my knowledge, who has planned this absolutely well, which is Bombay. Which is why power cuts in Bombay make news. Power cuts in Hyderabad or Bangalore, they don't make news. Right? The challenge is in distribution. Right? And that's being solved for, hopefully, at some pace. Right? Okay. Will V2G and TOD Akshay already spoke about. Okay. What vehicle to grid? Okay. Let charging infra get set up. Right? Let apps like us make sure that the experience is seamless. Correct. Let EVs come. Today we are at 10%, 10% two-wheelers. Let that become mainstream. Correct? करेंगे बाद में.
वो वही हालत हो जाएगा ना, जैसे गवर्नमेंट बैंगलोर चढ़ी आगे निकल गया रह गए, तो अब लोग
मत रुको. There are some companies who are working on V2G. Great, all the very best. Something called timing. Right? It's part art, part data, part science. Getting the timing right, and it's huge factor of luck. Huge factor of luck. No one can time the market. So, all the very best for V2G startups today. Correct? None of us here are equipped to say if starting up today in V2G is right or wrong. I think it is. है अभी वक्त, थोड़ा बना लेते हैं ईवी देश को, फिर इतने सारे व्हीकल्स होंगे, इनकी बैटरीज होंगी, राइट? डिस्चार्ज पहले चार्ज कर लेते हैं पहले, है ना? उनके हब्स बनेंगे, हमारे ऐप्स यूज होंगे, उसके बाद में ग्रिड को भी देंगे ब्रो.
Very well said. Any question? Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for the questions as well. And thanks for being very candid about your responses. It couldn't have been better than this. So,
none of, so while Maxson, हाँ? शॉपिंग नहीं खोल रहा ब्रो. बिल्कुल नहीं खोल रहा भाई. नहीं शॉपिंग नहीं खोल रहा. ठीक है ना? So, while Maxson obviously said very kind words about all three of us are still learning. That's a fact. All three of us are part of that curve where there was initial hype, and now everybody is trying to figure out their business model. Some of us are lucky that we've got a hunch that what will work for us. Having said that, Maxson, we need to acknowledge all three of us and the audience here. Just what I need to acknowledge Maxson's work here, been stellar. Correct. And I know Maxson, even before I started Electric Pay, when I was employed in a battery swapping company, Akshay, by the way. Correct. And at that point of time, I knew Maxson had reached out. And Maxson has been this constant, can I use that word, in this industry which has been going through your favorite work, harmonics, Maxson, correct? So he's been constant. He's seen Magenta, correct, through a charging business, and now through a very successful fleet business which is leveraging the entire charging network as well, correct? And so brilliant, and thank you so much for putting this together. Maxson. I think a format like this is extremely essential. You're right. Usually there are very uptight formats, but a candid format was needed. The conversation can go, on and on. But this is me on behalf of the panel here, as well as the past panels and the upcoming panels, right? Acknowledging and thanking your effort of actually taking the entire industry mainstream through not just your work in the EV industry, but also through this platform. So thank you for doing this. It requires work, effort, time.
Okay, now I request Maxson Lewis to give a vote of thanks.
Vote of thanks.
And then after that, we'll do the felicitation.
वो एकदम सरकारी बनना पड़ता है ना, vote of thanks, and on behalf of, okay, but let me do this with all sincerity. नहीं, but because I really need to thank you, दिल से आ जाएगा बैठ के moderator वाला. When we started this, till today, trust me, till today 12 o'clock, I was not too sure what I'm doing. Okay, था एक intention, and when we walked in, etc., and we started to see how this is going to go together. Smita, who's the producer of this show, and Partha, who's directing all of this, we just wanted an open conversation. This panel was exactly what we wanted. Right? It really did that. It actually made me feel that yes, it was all worth it. Right? Thank you so much. It also means that you have taken time away from your business and all the problems that you have to solve, and you're sitting here and talking. It means a lot to us, and wishing you all the best. Thank you so much. Thanks.